SOS Audio presents The Melancholy of Mikuru Asahina, fan audiobook, written by Nagaru Tanigawa. Even though many incidents happened during winter break, it more or less turned out as expected, just like getting nothing in return for purchasing a lottery ticket. As I reluctantly marched through the cold, I silently blamed the school's crappy construction. It made the already freezing temperatures seem colder. Trying not to suspect the cold of being a top-secret countermeasure made to combat global warming, I tried to fix my eyes elsewhere, but they so happened to land on the classroom's malfunctioning heater, making me wonder if our classroom was actually colder than the North Pole itself. Thinking about how I would have to suffer the same fate until I graduated from high school, I was embarrassed for not choosing a better school. But alas, what could I do? I was already stuck at North High. After school, having nothing better to do, I once again headed to the clubroom. Originally belonging to the literature club, the clubroom had, during the past year, slowly morphed into the SOS Brigade's official headquarters. Although I'm not sure official is the right word to use. Just like a mother bird gradually forgetting about its own young and treating a cuckoo's babies as its own, the whole school seemed to have forgotten about the literature club's existence. Added to the fact that the sole literature club member didn't mind us occupying her clubroom, even I wasn't bothered by it much anymore, never mind Haruhi. No matter how you looked at it, this was the only place I could go after school. Although I did intend to skip club activities once in a while, the thought of a certain girl sitting behind me trying to drill holes in my back with her killer intent fired through high-intensity vision beams was enough to vanish those thoughts. It just wasn't worth the risk. However, I wasn't sure if I was making the right choice or just the easy one. With those thoughts in mind, I instinctively knocked on the door, having arrived at the clubroom without even knowing it. If I were to enter without knocking first, there was a good chance I would be greeted with a sight as beautiful as heaven to behold. However, I'd rather make that small, often insignificant gesture in order to ensure something like that doesn't ever happen again. Under normal circumstances, I would often be answered by a soft yes as the door was slowly opened by my smiling senpai, whose appearance was angelic to say the least. She was so beautiful, she could easily pass as a fairy, pixie, or elf in disguise. Waiting for her to open the door was an after-school ritual that I had since gotten used to, but today there was no answer. Hence, it was safe to conclude that there were no fairies, pixies, elves, or smiling board game freaks in the clubroom. Even if there was someone inside, it would be the silent book lover. Not even Haruhi was inside. I was willing to wager my most prized possession, second only to my life, on this. Having reached this conclusion, I boldly opened the door, as if opening the door to the refrigerator in my house. Of course, Haruhi wasn't inside, nor Koizumi, and to my surprise, not even Nagato, but Asahina-san was. Her perfect figure was impossible to conceal under that maid outfit, as she sat on one of those folding chairs holding her broom in one hand and wearing a look that suggested she was spacing out. There was no doubt, it was our beloved Asahina-san, alright. Wait, something wasn't right. She was totally oblivious to me entering the clubroom, as she sat there gazing into space, occasionally letting out a sigh or two. It was simply amazing. Even simple gestures like that could be watched over and over on tape, and still be equally beautiful. I admired the beautiful scene before me for a full minute, before I proceeded to wake her up. Asahina-san? The desired effect was instantaneous.
Yes?
Jumping up from her seat, Asahina-san looked at me with eyes full of surprise, as she tightly gripped her broom in a half-sitting position.
Oh, Kyon-kun, when did you get here?
What do you mean when? I clearly remember knocking.
Did you? I didn't hear it at all. Sorry.
Asahina-san's face turned a deep shade of pink, as she nervously answered my question.
I was thinking about some, stuff.
Asahina-san quickly stuffed the broom into a utility closet Haruhi stole not too long ago, before raising her head to face me. The expression she wore was wonderful. Anything she said was fantastic. Asahina-san, bonsai! If it weren't for me constantly reminding myself not to, I would have surely rushed forward and cuddled her in my arms, which is what I've always wanted to do. Well, what are you waiting for then? Just do it! Hey, hold on a second. Try to think about what would happen to both you and the world. Just as the war between angels and demons in my mind was coming to a swift conclusion.
Where's Suzumiya-san? Isn't she here with you?
Those miserably short sentences were enough to bring me back to reality. Oh crap. I almost caused another major disaster. One that could change the fate of the entire world. Again, pretending nothing had happened, which was partially true after all, I placed my bag on the desk. She's in charge of class duty today. She's probably sweeping the auditorium by now.
I see.
As if uninterested in Haruhi's whereabouts, Asahina-san once again closed her cherry red lips. Even though I wasn't very good at guessing Asahina-san's thoughts, I could clearly tell something was different today. The time traveler would normally welcome me into the room with a smile as bright as sunlight. Of course, most of the glow was due to my imagination, along with her clear hazel eyes and soft silky hair, while giving out an aura of absolute sweetness. But today, she radiated a sense of melancholy. With the word troubled clearly written all over her face, Asahina-san stood there looking at me, as if she had something very difficult to tell me. Sadly, it wasn't due to her trying to get up the courage to confess her love to me. I had only seen this Asahina-san once before, and it didn't take long for that memory to surface. It was the same expression Asahina-san wore when she unexpectedly begged me to follow her into the past for the first time. Or more specifically, July 7th, 3 years ago, the day of the Tanabata Festival. It's been half a year since then, and while Asahina-san has grown even cuter, I unfortunately remain that idiot who always succumbs to a woman's charm. Although I knew that this more or less had something to do with Haruhi or the current state of the SOS Brigade, I consoled myself yet again by saying, "Oh, never mind, that isn't so bad either." No matter what Asahina-san said, I would never remain startled for too long, never mind refuse her offer. As I was busy trying to imprint Asahina-san's maid uniform as my homework, it appeared that she finally made up her mind and opened her round lips and said,
Kyon-kun, I have a favor I need to ask.
Suddenly, the door to the clubroom softly opened, as if trying to make the least amount of noise possible. I instinctively turned to look, only to see the short-haired, poker-faced girl silently enter the room. Like an android, Nagato proceeded to close the door. Taking a swift glance at me and Asahina-san, it seemed that Nagato understood that she was intruding. Nevertheless, she said nothing and merely headed to her regular seat. With a face devoid of emotion, Nagato sat on her chair before pulling out a large hardcover book from her bag. If she had shown any interest in me and Asahina-san staring face to face in an empty clubroom, it was far outweighed by that book, which would be better off being called an encyclopedia, the title alone being enough to give anyone a headache. Let's just ignore the fact of who reacted first. Asahina-san's reactions would always be larger than mine and consequently more obvious.
That's right. Tea. Let me make some tea.
As if wanting the entire world to know what she was about to do, Asahina-san deliberately raised her voice as she stumbled towards the kettle.
Water.
Cradling the kettle in her arms, Asahina-san hurriedly opened the door to the refrigerator.
Oh, we're out of water. I guess I'll just have to go get some.
I stopped her just as she was about to hurry out of the clubroom. Let me help you with that. I stretched out my hand to retrieve the kettle from my senpai. It's already cold enough outside. If you step outside in that outfit, you'd definitely get a lot of stares from the other students. There's no need to provide free eye candy for everyone. The water fountain's just downstairs. I'll go and get it. Upon hearing this, Asahina-san immediately said,
Then I'll go with you.
Asahina-san looked at me with eyes like those of a cat being left alone in the rain. She's so cute. Cuteness aside, however, this was also quite a troubling situation. Even now, Asahina-san is still not accustomed to being alone with Nagato. Someone should definitely break the ice between them. But, come to think of it, having both an alien and time traveler coexist in the same clubroom was already quite an amazing feat. I guess it all boils down to who's involved, huh? Seeing that Asahina-san would rather follow me to fetch water than stay in the clubroom with Nagato, I could find no reason to refuse her. Even if I were to dig all the way to the Mohorovich's discontinuity to search for one, Of course, if it were Haruhi, things would be different. Heck, there wouldn't be any need to dig at all. All the reasons would come spewing out faster than an unearthed oil fountain. Luckily, Haruhi wasn't around, or else I would probably suffer another series of mechanical pencil jabs. With the kettle safely in my arms, I hummed to myself as I considered which route to take to the water fountain. I finally decided to take the path to the old block when...
Oh, wait for me!
Still clad in her maid uniform, Asahina-san stumbled along, like a young cat stubbornly clinging on to its mother. Walking side by side with Asahina-san, I felt a sense of pride swelling up within me. Although it wasn't me who gave Asahina-san that figure, those angelic features, or her charming personality, as far as I know, I was the only one to have ever been so close to her. Ah, what joy! Too busy feeling pleased with myself, I totally forgot all about Asahina-san's melancholy. That's why,
Kyon-kun,
just as I started filling the kettle with water,
are you free this Sunday? There's a place I would like to visit with you.
Asahina-san's tone was dead serious. At the same time, I was so shocked by her statement that no modern calculating device could determine the exact value of my surprise. For a moment, I totally forgot what today was, and how many days it would take to reach Sunday. After much effort, I finally managed to croak out, sure. Even if I had something to do this Sunday, at Asahina-san's invitation, all the red markings on my calendar had magically disappeared. Even if she requested we meet on the 29th of February, I would still be there. Who cares about something as trivial as a leap year? Yeah, I guess I'm free. After forcing out those words, shrouds of mist began to slowly rise in my heart. Haven't I heard this somewhere before? But then again, at that time we were traveling to 3 years ago. Time travel gets kind of boring after a while, you know. Sure, it may seem fun at first, but frequently hopping from past to future and vice versa, one has to wonder if one's appetite grows larger after time travel.
Please don't worry.
Asahina-san had subconsciously picked up the kettle and started playing with it. Her eyelids drooped as she casually watched the flow of the tap water.
This time I'm not going to the past or the future. Actually, all I wanted was to get some tea leaves from the supermarket. Kyon-kun, would you mind coming with me?
Asahina-san then proceeded to reduce her voice to barely audible levels and placed an index finger on her cherry red lips.
Keep this a secret from everyone, okay?
My chest once again swelled with pride. Filled with so much confidence, I bet I could still tell a straight-out lie after taking a full dose of Veritas serum. The days, hours, minutes, and even seconds that soon followed never felt longer. Why is it that the more you stare at a clock, the slower it moves? As if intentionally mocking you. Could it have, by any chance, decided to take a vacation while I wasn't looking? Even shaking the clock with my hands didn't seem to speed up the movement of the accursed second hand. I finally realized how powerless we humans truly were against the slow passage of time, as our dull and tasteless lives slowly drift by. Nevertheless, this was the first time I had an ordinary, non-time related outing with a time traveler for the sole purpose of purchasing tea leaves. Now, I'd been thinking for the past couple of days, since there was obviously no better way of spending the time, I didn't think Asahina-san was one to have any problems doing the shopping alone, and she definitely wasn't so indecisive as to need help deciding on what brand to buy. Even if she bought the worst tea leaves available in the market and produced a cup of totally horrible tea, I would probably still enjoy it. And the rest of the SOS Brigade wasn't that picky either. So, what did Asahina-san invite me for? Why did she do it so mysteriously? A boy and a girl of a similar age walking together on a Sunday. Wouldn't that be what normal humans consider a date? I can't think of any other explanation. Yeah, it's a date alright, just as I thought. Choosing tea leaves was just an excuse after all. You didn't have to be so mysterious about it. Couldn't you have just told me right then? No, wait. This is how it should be. Otherwise, it wouldn't be Asahina-san. With those thoughts in mind, Sunday finally arrived. I pedaled my bike furiously as I sped towards the agreed meeting spot near the train station. My trusty bike seemed to understand how I felt. Even without a motor, the pedal spun surprisingly fast. This was probably the first time I had looked forward to a meeting ever since I joined the SOS Brigade. That's because this was an extremely ordinary outing. The destination was not a sealed space with blue giants, the tickets weren't tickets to the future, and the mode of transport was definitely not a UFO. That is, unless the one waiting before the station was the elder version of Asahina-san with that secretive smile that screamed of a hidden motive. Now that would be a different story. No matter how you look at it, I'm still a high school student with a moderate amount of intelligence. Thanks to that and my past experiences, I could more or less predict how the future would go. Asahina-san Big was no exception. She would appear whenever I got the feeling that she would, so even if she showed up today, I wouldn't be surprised. No way! I forcefully parked my bike in the shade of the power poles before proceeding to lecture myself. Even my thoughts had become biased. If things carried on like this, even if something did happen, I'd still remain perfectly calm. And that wasn't good either. The only person who can stare something weird in the face and remain perfectly calm is someone with a few screws loose. I want to be a normal person, or at least someone who's mentally sane. Although it may be too late for that, I should at least smile when it's time to smile. Now was definitely one of those moments. So I tried my best and forced myself to smile. The Asahina-san standing at the usual SOS Brigade meeting spot today was none other than my favorite version of Asahina-san. Standing in the middle of a busy crowd, she waved furious at me with that tiny hand of hers. That pose was enough to melt anyone's heart. Sporting a simple yet elegant outfit, with a different hairstyle, she was like a girl eagerly trying to blossom into womanhood. Seeing such a change in her, I was moved to the point of tears. Faced with an elegantly dressed Asahina-san, I hastily pulled my bike to a halt, and revealed a Koizumi-like smile which I had rehearsed over and over in a mirror. Sorry I'm late. Although there was still 15 minutes until the meeting time.
It's alright. I just got here myself.